Hello guys, in today's lesson we're going to discuss about monitoring and evaluation indicators. As you are all aware, indicators is a very important component of monitoring and evaluation system. Without an indicator, we can't monitor or evaluate a project, program or activities. For monitoring and evaluations, indicators are needed at all levels of results chain if you want to measure the changes our project or program has brought. So today let's discuss what is an M&E indicators and it is important and how it's used to measure our project progress. To begin with, we will start with definition of an indicator. An indicator is basically means a specific observable and measurable characteristic or variable that is used to track progress, assess performance, and measure the impact of project, program, or intervention. Indicator is a specific variable that we use to track the progress of our project, assess the performance of our project, and finally measure the impact of our project or intervention. If we define in another way, indicator is an essential tool that help organization to measure whether they are achieving the objective and targets effectively. Indicator components. What are indicators made up of? The first component of an indicator is title. An indicator must have a heading that captures the focus of an indicator. An indicator must have a definition, which is a clear and concise description of the indicator. An indicator must have a purpose, the reason why that indicator exists and what it is used for. Rationale. There must be an underlying principle that justify the development and deployment of an indicator. Rationale basically means why is that indicator needed and its usefulness. An indicator must have a method of measurement. This is a specific operation used to measure the indicator, such as the data collection tools, the sampling frame, and the quality assurance. Method of measurement must have a numerator, the top number of a common fraction. It must also have the denominator, the bottom number of the common fraction, which when we divide the numerator or for the denominator will give us the calculation that we use to determine the indicator value. An indicator must have a data collection method. The approaches that we use to collect the data, such as survey, questionnaire, observation, experiment. An indicator must have a data collection tools. The tool that we are going to use to collect the data, such as ODK, Kobo, ONA, etc. An indicator must also have a data collection frequency. That's the interval at which data are collected, whether we collect it quarterly, annually, or biannually. An indicator must have a data disaggregation. The relevant subgroup that collected data can be separated into so that it become more precise, can be understood, and the data can be analyzed and the finding noted. Common data disaggregation is sex, either male or female, age, and the risk population, such as whether the population is IDP, returnees, host community, refugees, etc. An indicator must have a guideline to interpret and use the data. We must have we must have a recommendation on how best to evaluate and apply our findings. Whether our findings shows an increase or decrease in a particular measure. An indicator must have strengths or weaknesses, which is a brief summary of what the indicator does well and what it does not do well. An indicator must have challenges that it will happen to it during its implementation. Challenges basically means the obstacle or problem that may have an impact on the use of our indicator. Relevant sources of additional information. An indicator must have a reference to information material that relate to the indicator, which include background information on the development of the indicator, comparison with the previous version of the indicator, and lesson learned from use of indicator or similar indicator in various settings. Let's move to the indicator standard. For you to use an indicator in your project or intervention, it must meet the following 5 standards. Number 1, your indicator must be one you need and one that is useful for your project. Number 2, your indicator must have a technical merit. Your indicator must be valid and reliable. Your indicator must be fully defined. It must have the title, purposes, the one we discussed before. It must have data collection method, data collection tools, frequency of data collection, all the components of the indicator. Your indicator must be measurable. An indicator that can be measured, that have denominator, numerator, and a value. And lastly, your indicator must be field tested or used operationally. Your indicator has been tested before, and it must be satisfied that it can be used in other settings. Let's go to type of indicators. I can divide the type of indicators into 2. These are monitoring indicators and the evaluation indicators. Monitoring indicators has 3 types of indicators, while evaluation indicators has 2 types of indicators. Monitoring indicators includes input. Input indicators measures the resources invested in your project or program, i.e. the budget, the personnel, the material, the equipment, and the time invested. For example, in this project that we are training farmers, our input will be that we are going to print 20 booklets. Number 2, activities. Activity is also called process indicators, and it measures the timeliness, following the procedure, quality of services, stakeholder engagement, and capacity building. In this farmers project, our activity will be 1, training conducted. Output track result of activity and interventions, i.e. number of beneficiaries, quantity of products, and quality of product. In this project, we're going to train 20 farmers. Evaluation indicators. Evaluation indicators assesses the changes or benefit that result from the output, i.e. changes in knowledge or understanding, changes in behavior, changes in skill, and finally changes in attitude or conditions. In our project, after we printed 20 booklets, which is our inputs, and then we conducted 1 training, which is our activity, and then we trained 20 farmers, which is our output. Then our result will be, after 3 months of doing that work, our result will be 15 farmers will keep books of account. Finally, we have an impact. An impact measures the long-term effect or product changes resulting from project or program. Impact is the difference that our project has brought. After we printed 20 booklets, 20 training booklets, then we conducted one training, then we trained 20 farmers, and after 3 months, 15 farmers kept books of accounts. Finally, our project, after 6 months, 10 farmers out of 15 farmers have increased their net profit with at least 15%. Then let's move to level of indicators. There are 3 types of level of indicators. The first one is global level. The second one is country level, the project or program level. For example, the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we are having a global level indicators, a country level indicators, then we have project program level indicators. Let's move. We have an indicator categories. An indicator is categorized into 2, quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is a numeric indicator and they are mostly presented as numbers or percentage, while qualitative is a descriptive observation which are used to supplement the numbers or percentage provided by the quantitative indicators. Let's delve into the difference between quantitative and qualitative indicators. Quantitative indicators, they're expressed as numbers, while qualitative indicators are expressed as words. Qualitative indicators, they are objectives and can easily be quantified and analyzed statistically. We have a set tools that you can use to analyze the quantitative indicators, while qualitative indicators are subjective and they are based mostly on superficial observation or interpretations. Example of quantitative indicators include height of a person, weight of a person, income of a person, GDP of a country, temperature, and number of cents. While qualitative examples are the satisfaction level, how people are satisfied, the perception of the people, attitudes of the people, opinions, and cultural norms. Quantitative indicators involve large number of respondents, while qualitative indicators involve small number of respondents. Quantitative indicators, mostly their questions are closed-ended questions, which have yes or no, or they have multiple choice format, and they mostly result in numbers or graphs. While qualitative is an open-ended question, and the result is presented in text and longer reports. Quantitative indicators are specific, measurable, and numeric, while qualitative indicators are broadly defined. Questionnaire and tools that are used to collect quantitative indicators are difficult to develop, but data is easier to collect. But qualitative, the questionnaire and tools are easier to develop, but difficult to collect, as it involves satisfaction, perception, attitudes, etc. Quantitative indicators provide precise number that statistically can be analyzed, while qualitative provide rich data and detailed information, but they are very difficult to analyze. Let's move how quantitative and qualitative indicators are expressed. Quantitative indicators are expressed as a unit. For example, the number of staff trained. They are expressed as price, the amount of money spent on building. They are expressed as proportion, the proportion of community that has access to the service. They are expressed as rate of change, which is, for example, the percentage change in average household income over the reporting period. They are also expressed as ratio. For example, the ratio of teachers to pupils in a school. They are also expressed as scoring and ranking. For example, the score of 5 given by the project participant to rate the quality of the service they receive. Qualitative indicators, they are expressed as number 1, satisfaction. How participants describe their level of satisfaction with the project activities. They are expressed as a standard. For example, the extent to which training is recognized by the appropriate authority, such as the government, etc. They are expressed as practices and behavior. For example, the way practice has changed since the completion of awareness or the promotions. Institutional change, the effect of new measures introduced to improve the organization accountability to project users. Let's move to importance of indicators. Number 1, indicators provide a systematic way to track progress toward achieving goals and objectives. Indicators help us in holding individual, organization, and government accountable for the result of their actions. Indicators are used in measuring the specific resources that go into carrying out project or program. Indicators are used in measuring the immediate result obtained by the project or program. They are also used in measuring the project success. Indicators facilitate planning by providing data that show us what works and what does not. Indicators provide evidence that supports our decision-making process. Characteristic of indicators. Number 1, indicators must be reliable. Each time is used to measure, it must produce same result when used to measure the same condition or event. Indicator must be valid. Indicator must measure only the condition or event that is intended to measure. Indicator must be relevant. Indicator must be directly related to the goals, objective, or outcome of the program or intervention being measured. Indicator must be measurable or must be quantifiable or observable. Indicator must be timeliness. It must provide information in a timely manner to support decision making. Indicator must not be expensive and it must be cost effectiveness in terms of data collection, analysis, and reporting. Indicator must be independent. It must be specific in what they are measuring. Interpretability. Indicator must be easy to interpret and explain. Indicator must be context specific and it must be tailored to the specific content, goals, and stakeholders of the program or project. Actionable. Indicator must provide information that can lead to actionable insight and decisions. Process of developing indicators. What are the processes that we follow when we are developing an indicators? The first process is we must define the purpose of our indicators. What are we trying to measure or evaluate? We must identify what we want to measure. We must determine which characteristics of program are most important to track. We must review the existing literature. We must look for established indicators or measurement tools that have been used in similar contexts. We must consult with all stakeholders who have vested interest in our project. The stakeholders here include the beneficiary, government, staffs, etc. The input will help us to ensure that our indicators are relevant and meaningful. We must use a smart indicator process to develop high quality indicators. Smart indicators involve smart criteria such as our indicator must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. We must develop our indicator framework. The framework will outline the key indicators along with clear definition of each indicator and how it will be measured. We must set our target. Our target is the our end destination of our group program, what we hope to achieve, and mostly it's a number or a percentage that will measure our success. We must select our data sources. We must select the data sources that will be used to collect information for each indicator. This includes the survey interviews, existing database, or other sources. We must determine the frequency of data collection. We must know how often our data will be collected in order to properly track the program progress. Finally, after we do all those, follow all those processes, we implement and monitor our indicator. As part of our monitoring and evaluation process, we regularly collect the data, analyze results, and track progress towards our goals. Then we review and revise to ensure our indicators are relevant and aligned with our goals. Finally, we communicate the results to our stakeholders and use the data to inform decision making and improve outcomes. After we define target and develop our indicators, finally we'll develop targets that we are going to measure our expected result. Targets are basically means the quantitative goal or objective for activity, project, or program. In other words, targets are the expected result, what we want to achieve at the end of our project. Indicators are used to determine if targets are being met. Factors to consider when setting target. When we are setting target, the following factors we put into consideration. The first one is our baseline data we collected at the start of our activity or project or program. Historical trend. Historical trend is the pattern of change that has occurred over time. And we have to consider whether the same pattern will likely continue. Then our stakeholders' expectation, what our key stakeholders, such as government officials and program implementers, believe can be accomplished. Then we consider the expert opinions and research findings. What do the experts think about target? What has previous research indicated that is relevant to target setting? Finally, we consider performance of similar activities, project or program. How have similar effort performed at other times or in other settings performed? Finally, I have a small quiz here that will match this type of indicators with a correct definition. The first definition is the immediate result of program activity, this which relates to direct product or deliverable of program activity, such as the number of counseling sessions completed, the number of people reached, and the number of material distributors. Already, will be an output. Already we have discussed what it is an output, and we have defined it as immediate result of program activity, such as number of the people trained, etc. Number two, the immediate changes that our program effect on target audience or population, such as behavior, access to services, policies, and environmental conditions. We have already, and here is outcome, and we have defined outcome, and we say that those changes that come from the output is what we call it outcome, and mostly involve change in knowledge, attitude, belief, skills, or behavior, or access to services. Then are resources used in program, including financial and human resources from a variety of resources, as well as curriculum material, etc. Here is input, because input we have already defined it as resources that we invest in our project, such as human resource, financial, etc. The longer range cumulative effect of program over time on what they ultimately aim to change. Often this effect will be a population level health outcome, such as change in HIV infection, morbidity, and mortality. Here is impact. We have already seen impact as our longer term goals. Thank you. I wish you all the best.